1 2 1 2. Can you just talk for me, mate?
1 2 1 2. Check.
Check one.
Australia.
Check. Okay, that's beautiful. That's all happening.
Good.
Okay, and I'm going to press record on this,
Mhm.
and then we'll kick off, mate.
My daughter's watching a movie for an assessment next door.
Yeah.
You can't hear anything of that. That's cool.
No.
No,
It's
good.
fine, man.
Yep.
Okay, I'll press record. Okay, the little red button's going. Shake it out, shake it out, shake it out, shake it out. Jazz hands, jazz hands. Okay, I'll do my little spiel and then I'll introduce you, okay?
Okay.
Oh, I'm just really freaking tired, man. I was up all night, so if I suddenly
Yeah.
glaze over and fall over, don't take it personally, okay? I've only had about 2 hours sleep, so
Is the whole thing start to finish going to be live, or do you do edit it, or how's it work?
I live stream it and then I edit it for the podcast.
Okay, with you.
Yeah.
Yep.
So if you say something particularly racist or sexist, I can edit it out later. So just try and go easy on that, mate. All right.
Okay, righto. Yeah. That's tricky for me.
Tricky. It's Okay, here we go.
Yeah.
Hi guys, and welcome to the Performing Musicians Podcast. Today I'm super excited to talk to my old mate, Brisbane legend, musician, agent Chris Dillon. How are you, mate?
I'm very well, Ben. Thanks for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. I've been wanting to chat to you for ages. You are in Brizzy right now. Just to get us kicked off, can you tell us what do you do and how long have you been doing it?
Currently, I am running a booking agency called Rooster Entertainment here in Brisbane, and I kicked that off around about 15 years ago now. Yeah,
Already?
Finished up playing in a band. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
It's been a long time.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so
we were going well.
Yeah, well, we'll get to that.
Yeah.
So you said you were. I mean, I know what the band is, Miles from Nowhere, but you were part of a Brisbane institution, if you will, one of the best live bands kicking around Brisbane, sort of 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah.
And then you decided to go into being an agent. What triggered that change?
Well, I was very happily involved with my wife now, Nicola. We weren't married at the time, and we wanted to start a family. And the band life, we were doing a fair bit of travel at that stage, doing the whole sort of, that was the days when you actually produced a CD, a tangible product, and you would then jump in the van and drive up and down the coast.
Tell us more, Grandpa.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Well, there were some positives. There were some benefits to that.
Absolutely.
Those times, I can tell you.
Absolutely.
But, yeah, it does get to be a little bit of a grind as well, though. And I think that we had done, it had sort of reached its natural end, the band, and we were ready to move on with a different sort of chapter in our lives. And I moved to sort of performing in a solo format. As you do when you're playing in a band in a town or a city like Brizzy, you make lots of relationships with venue managers and publicans, and I started doing a few of these solo gigs at these places, and one very nice man who I'm still mates with today and still involved with his company, he asked me if I would like to coordinate their solo entertainment, and at that stage it was just an opportunity for me to roster my mates on. So, which I thought, yeah, I'll do that, and took a 10% commission, and it grew from there. Just sort of that venue led to another venue, and then, we were doing very well, as I said, just pre-COVID, but we'll get back there again, I'm sure.
Awesome. So let's go back. Let's go back in the way back machine, mate. So are you from Brisbane originally?
I'm originally from Mackay in North Queensland, or sort of central North Queensland sort of thing. I came to Brizzy when I was around 11. My parents divorced, and my mother was doing it pretty tough, and we had an opportunity to come to Brisbane and get some support from her parents, which we did. I, for a long time, took me a while to get used to the bigger city. I loved Mackay. Mackay has a certain charm to it. And
That's putting it nicely, mate. A lot of my family lives there, so I'm intimately familiar with Mackay.
yeah,
It's an
yeah,
interesting
well,
little it's an interesting little place.
it is. The fishing's great, and there's some uh, under underbelly of Mackay that's probably not so attractive, and it's a little bit perhaps still stuck in the dark ages in a lot of ways. But it was nice as a kid to be able to just jump on a bike and ride down to Far Beach and pump a bucket full of yabbies and catch a bag full of whiting. That was good fun. So
That's amazing. A lot
yeah,
a
but
lot of a
coming to
lot of
Brisbane.
the English listeners will be going, "What did he just say? What did he say? Something
Get
about
some bait
wabbies?"
and yeah, get some bait and catch dinner. It was pretty easy.
Yeah.
You would basically catch as many fish as you had yabbies. So it was back in those days,
And, f-
50 some years ago.
and for all the overseas listeners, yabbies are little small shell, like basically shellfish, aren't they?
Yeah, yeah, they're like a very small, soft shell lobster type thing. Yeah,
Yeah, they're awesome. And so you moved down when you were 11.
yeah,
Were you
yeah,
already involved in music, or was that something that happened once you moved here? I mean, once you moved to Brisbane.
yeah. So when I moved to Brisbane, my grandparents owned a block of flats, and they actually were originally from Mackay as well. My grandfather had made some really good decisions with land and cane fields, and he was a butcher and had cattle, and he sort of had lots of land. And then when he finished up, he did pretty well, and so they were able to give us a flat, a unit to live in for free. Well, initially
Wow.
to help my mum out. And when we arrived at this place in Brisbane, um, around about a week later, this is a very funny story, actually. And it's funny because I've only realised how influential this story was on me. But we arrived, and about 3 or 4 days later, a package arrived that obviously was meant for the previous tenant, and we couldn't find the tenant. And my grandparents tried to get a hold of them, and they'd shot through. And my mum said, you can open it up, see what it is. And it was the
Cocaine?
Beatles box.
Cocaine?
No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't Charlie Bubble. It was the Beatles box.
Oh,
And
wow.
like, it was sort of like I don't know, I wouldn't say it goes so far as to say it was like a K-Tel, package of the Beatles. It was like, but it wasn't their albums. It was, all of their songs, but just in sort of a compilation form. And I started playing those records, and that was a massive turning point for me. And then around about 2 years after that, I got a guitar.
So what sort of musician would you have to be if it was like Led Zeppelin greatest hits or something? Or the Rolling Stones?
Well, that's true. Well, I started getting into Led Zeppelin, of course,
Yeah.
and lots of other great bands, but the Beatles still remain, uh, you know, pretty special to me. Like, just their harmonies, and that's my love for music is a lot of it is based around harmonies and vocal harmonies.
Yep.
I love to harmonize with my fellow musicians.
That
It
that
gives me a bit of a tingle.
that makes
Yeah.
a lot of sense to me actually. So this was when you were like 11 or 12, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
And then you got a guitar. Did you get lessons or anything, or did you just sort of nut it out?
No, I just sort of worked it out, and you know me, Ben. I'm a bit of a meat and potatoes sort of guitarist, but I basically just taught myself the chords, and then I've got the ability to hear the music and just sort of work it out. Um, but yeah, it is a frustrating thing that I never did any sort of musical theory. That is something that's I've found a little bit irksome as I went through there. But it's okay. I had a great time, and I've managed to sort of forge a little bit of a decent career out of just the ABCs, D's, and I even got to the F's.
Slow down, mate, with your science talk. What's this F you speak of?
Yeah, well, yeah. Then we watch you on YouTube, and that's when you wanted to smash a guitar, Benny. So
I know 6 chords. If I could learn a 7th, I'm definitely going to be famous, mate. Definitely. That's how it works, isn't it?
yeah,
I think
absolutely.
it's actually inverse, isn't it? The more chords you know, the less popular you are.
That's true. Very true, man.
Although
Yeah.
in saying that, a lot of Beatles stuff is actually harmonically quite complex.
Yeah, it got that way, didn't it?
Yeah.
Towards the end.
They were doing
Yeah.
some really interesting things with substitutions and the way they're moving through modalities and stuff. There's actually a little bit of it gets quite dense there at times.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it started off pretty light, but
She loves you.
yeah.
Absolutely.
No, absolutely, and that was part of the my love for the band. Like that was just freaking me out where it got to, and the risks they took.
Yeah.
Like one of my favorite songs is "A Day in the Life," and I just that song just blew me away when I heard it. I could not get past it.
Yeah.
I would just sing it to myself or in the shower, and yeah, it just stuck with me.
It's funny because my parents weren't big Beatles fans, so I came to the Beatles much later. So I had that same thing with bands like Jethro Tull and more of the 70s kind of proggy stuff, which probably explains a lot about myself, really. Yeah, a lot, really. About my penchant for extra notes when they're not needed.
Yeah. But we crossed over there, you and I, when Passion and Warfare or Flexible, where we discovered that whole Vi thing there, and
man, Passion and Warfare it's still to this day. When I finally, and I was in Mount Isa when I first heard that, when I was 15, maybe 16, I think.
Yeah.
And that was the thing for me. I just went, like most other music, I could listen to and go, I kind of get that. Like I can hear what might be coming, because I've been playing guitar for a few years, and because I was 15, I was the best guitarist in the world, of course.
And of course. You possibly were in Mount Isa as well.
In my mind, I was the best that's ever lived. But then, so I'm hearing stuff on the radio and I'm hearing CDs and albums, and then I heard that, and I was just like, I don't even comprehend what's happening here. Like this.
I know, but it still made sense.
Oh, it
musically,
was,
even though it's so bizarre that it's so so out there, but and I think that's like a lot of people don't get that sort of stuff with Satriani and Vi. They think it's just like too many notes.
Yeah.
But it actually really does make so much sense.
Oh, it's cohesive, and the songwriting. And I mean, if you look at the songwriting on that album, I mean, it's for the time it was completely otherworldly. Like obviously now with all the home production stuff, you can do pretty amazing stuff just from your from your flat or your house. But back then, that was all tracked in a studio. That was all tracked a lot of that was multi-track onto tape. All that sort of stuff. Like that's next level, man. That blows my mind. Yeah, I love him.
Amazing.
He's a crazy dude. I love him. But anyway, we're not talking about Steve Vai. We're talking about you, mate. So, so you did high school? Did you take music in high school?
No, I didn't. I didn't do any musical subjects in high school. I did sing in the choir. I was involved in choirs at school. And that was cool. Actually, that's probably another beginning of my love for harmony. I was involved in the musicals at school. So in year 11 and 12, we did a pretty cheesy musical in year 11 called Once Upon a Mattress, which was, that whole because
let me
send up a Princess and the Pea.
Let me guess. You had an artistic music director. Like your guy in charge of the music department was very artistic, was it?
Dude, he was exactly exactly the typical guy, Mr. G or whatever you see. That fellow's comic show. I can't remember his name, but yeah, he was so standard theatre drama teacher. He was great.
I had
And
one of
then
those
yeah,
as well, man. I had one of those, and he
it's
was the
great.
best. He was the best. Oh, and
Yeah,
like this is what the 80s and the 90s in Australia. So no one actually said, "Oh, he's he was not openly
yeah,
gay," but he was like this guy used to turn up in like kimonos and stuff to the musical practice, and he
yeah,
was
man.
just so
Anything
flamboyant.
goes.
Yeah, and it was just like everyone was just like, "Oh yeah, he's very eccentric." But he's just like obviously, and a flamboyantly gay man, and it was great. And he was the best. Like our music, because I did musicals as well,
Yeah,
and sang in
yeah,
choirs, the same as you actually. And it was
yeah.
just like
Cool.
back in the day, you just go like, "Oh yeah, he's just a bit of a nutter," Or you think, "Oh, he might be he might be one of those." But it was just like it was the best because he also introduced you to a whole bunch of stuff that you just in Australian society at the time,
Yeah,
not terribly open minded, not terribly
pretty bleak.
inclusive. Yeah. So it's like meat and two veg.
Yeah.
Not two meat and veg. It's meat and two veg.
We had this wonderful situation where the PE teacher was, just the enemy, the arch enemy of the theatre teacher. So it was,
Oh, awesome!
they yeah, and there was obviously these shared spaces where they had to try to book and rehearse, or you
Excellent.
know, it was constant. He was like so overtly macho, the PE teacher, and the theatre teacher was like the polar opposite. It was just wonderful to watch.
Oh man, that's like like a stereotype play. It's like
Yeah, it was great.
if you actually
It was very
if you
funny.
put that on the stage, people will be like, "No, that's too stereotypical. You've got to that's
Yeah,
just too
it
pat."
happened. We watched it play out in front of us every day. It was
Oh,
great.
that's genius. So you got involved in theatre and you got involved in that stuff. So you obviously had already had a love for performing. Were you already playing
Yeah.
in the band, or was it more performance or?
No, so in the first one in year 11, I was a jester in this Once Upon a Mattress. It was a great fun thing. So it was one of those ones from Broadway that Carol Burnett was the originally one of the characters that made it popular, and then in year 12 we did Grease, which was just so much fun, and I actually played Danny Zuko, believe it or not, because I back then I had a little more hair than obviously how much hair I've got now. It's like looking into a mirror,
Yeah, it
isn't it,
is a little
Tim?
bit. Yeah, it's a little bit like that.
But yeah, I was Danny Zuko in that, and that was so much fun. Like the stage play of Grease is very different to the movie, and there's some really cool songs in it. It's probably more rock and roll, like I think Olivia Newton-John um, had some, no disrespect to Olivia Newton-John, but it's like some different influences on the movie.
Yeah.
So yeah, the stage show is like completely different. But that was great fun. So yeah, I definitely loved musical theatre.
You want to know something weird, man? I did Grease in year 12 as well,
Yeah,
but I was in the band. I was the guitar
you were
player.
Johnny Casino.
No,
No,
no, I was in the house band.
Yeah,
So
right.
the year before, the 2 years before that, because I was living in Brisbane, in Redcliffe, which is just outside of
Yeah.
Brisbane, and I was like not the lead, but like the third lead in a couple of the musical plays, like year 9, year 10, and then I moved to Mount Isa, which
Mm.
is like a small country town, and then in year 12 they did Grease, and I wasn't the lead anymore because I was like this. I was a very dark and brooding musical genius. So I was in the house band, so I know exactly what
You
you
were
mean.
smashing that hand jive, man.
Man,
You were smashing the hand
the
jive.
music was awesome. I really
Wasn't it?
loved it. There was a couple of songs like they had these beautiful like arpeggiations and stuff.
Yeah.
It was really
Yeah.
great,
So
man.
the last song, instead of You Better Shape Up, had some really cool guitar parts.
Yeah.
That will I feel so strange? Upon my word.
Oh man, I did this whole thing where I took like this. I think they wrote it in because they knew I was such a unashamed show off. They just they did the thing where I did this massive big solo and stuff with my with my little homemade like effects and stuff like that. It was so good, man. I had so much fun.
Yeah, it is really cool fun, and it's the hanging out with all of those people, and in a school sense, you're sort of hanging out with a lot of guys and girls that you probably don't sort of sort of talk to that much at
Yeah,
school
yeah,
or hang around with at lunchtime or whatever. And it's I would encourage my kids to get involved with it because it's, you just form all of these lovely friendships and they last forever. Like it's something now. Even when you have like a school reunion or whatever, or your mates with them on Facebook or whatever, those memories are still there. Of
absolutely.
those times.
Well, they're formative, man. Like that, you're between 14 and 17. Like you're making you're basically forging the person you're going to be. So I completely agree. And I was playing club football, and smashing into big buffy blokes, on the weekend. But through the week, you go and you prance about and play music. It's great.
Yeah.
Makes you a more rounded
I love
person.
it. Exactly. Yeah. And I was doing the same thing. I was like, always had a basketball in my hand.
Yeah.
And if I didn't have a basketball in my hand, then it was the guitar. And it's good to sort of have a taste of the of both sides of that. The sports, the whole. I'm a bit over football.
What?
I know,
Mate, this is
man,
well in my wheelhouse.
It's so weird because I played rugby league and then I moved to basketball. But yeah, I just once I've had a son, I don't want him to play rugby league.
No.
I don't want him to get injured.
Man, I mean, like I played rugby league in high school, all through high school, and then I played club up until under 19, I think. And I made a lot of really good friends while I was playing football.
Yeah.
But it really opened my eyes to a lot of and especially when I was playing in the bush, it was pretty rough. Like, rugby league in the outback it's pretty rough and tumble. So, you spend half the time trying to get a try and half the time sort of blocking punches and trying to put your nose back in joint, And for me, I think, and when I became a musician, and I know you and I have had this conversation many times, Australia is a very strange. It's a strange country. Australia, it's a country that's full of really big dichotomies. And I used to complain because you booked me for tons of gigs in Australia, like for years. You basically helped me pay my mortgage for a long time. But the constant thing I would say is fucking TVs everywhere, and it's constant football. It's constant football, and I think I've had an existential angst with the football for years because I grew up around football and I really enjoyed playing the football. But once I stopped physically playing it, I didn't really ever watch it again. Like I watched the State of Origins, but to me, the frustration I had with football is it's so all-consuming, especially in Queensland, where we're from.
Yes, yeah.
If you don't talk rugby league, there's people that
particularly at Origin time.
Yeah, but there's people you just can't talk to. Like there's a fair percentage of males in Queensland of a certain age that if you're not discussing the finer points of the fullback and the Broncos, you're not able to have a conversation. And that I used to hate that. And as the more I played music in Brizzy, the more frustrated I got with it because you can't. And I had a saying, it's CFF, you can't fight the footy. The footy is everything. So I'd walk,
It is very frustrating because, it's something that I have to field, phone calls from guys and all the time, and they'll rock up to a beer garden and, there's a massive screen behind them, like not just a television, like a massive...
A 10-foot giant LCD screen showing football.
Yeah,
everybody
football.
Everybody there is to watch the game. They're not interested in you. They got no interest in you. You are in the way.
It's soul destroying, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah. And you might get the odd embarrassing situation where somebody scores a try just as you finish a song and you think that applause was for you. That's that's one of those that's a heart sinker. That one.
Oh man. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's a cultural thing. I really do. I think it's I personally have the thought that it's gotten worse simply because of the focus from the Australian government, particularly over the last 25 years, on making sure everyone is a certain way so that they don't ask too many questions. Not too smart. Make sure everyone's constantly distracted all the times. And
sport is one of their tools, perhaps.
I personally think it's an effective tool, and I think it works all across the world. But Australia is unique. I think Australia is like Australia and like England. I was quite surprised actually when I moved to England. Like the English crowd is like really known for like loving football, like soccer.
Yeah,
Like, they love it. They absolutely love it. And I remember one of the first gigs I ever did here was actually it was after rugby union. It was like the World Sevens or something. And it was in a pub in Fulham, and I got booked for it. And it was like, okay, so you're going to be playing straight after the grand final of the football. And I was like, oh, this is going to suck so bad. Because in Australia, if you play right after the grand final, it's either going to be awesome because your team has won and the crowd's going to be pumping, but they're going to be absolutely smashed and a bunch of alpha dudes going, or it's going to suck because everyone wants to kill you because you're interrupting them
and kill themselves.
But it was one of the best gigs I've ever done.
And I think maybe that is a difference. I think you might have hit something there, just unfortunately, with the Australian audience, because when the band that I was in, and we had a little bit of time in the UK as well. We did the Australian pockets there, Acton and Shepherd's Bush, and then we were over in Germany for a bit as well. We did, and the audiences there definitely are more attentive and more respectful and less likely to take you for granted. And in fact, in Germany, the audiences loved us so much in Germany that when we came back to Australia, the band broke up shortly after.
Wow.
It was sort of maybe around about 2 years after we got back. There was an anticlimax after experiencing that, and then coming back to Australia and doing the shows where, it's the audience is different. They don't have the same appreciation or respect for what you do, what it takes to do what you do. And I think it's the life of Riley in some respects. They think, why are you getting paid for this?
Yeah.
It's like, man, you do it.
Well, that's it.
I got a better chance of doing your job than you have of doing my job.
Absolutely.
Man.
Well, that's the thing. Like the question I was always asked is, but what do you really do?
What's your real job?
No, I mean, this is, you're good. Yeah, you're good. Yeah, you sound all right. What do you do for a job? I'm like, mate, this is what I do. Really? That's something you can do?
Oh, God.
But anyway,
But I mean, the thing is, that even comes down, like, I don't know if you got this, but when I decided, because I left university to pursue this, and I did 2 years into a Bachelor of Science degree. I don't know why I chose to do a Bachelor of Science degree, but and then I decided I wanted to play music. And for a while, there was definitely a lot of groans from my parents, and I'm not sure if you experienced that. So this is probably a thing that's bred into the audience here in Australia, that from elder generations.
I mean, to be fair, like, because we moved to the bush, so where I moved to was a little country town which had a giant mine in it. So I went from when I was living in near the capital, I got academic awards every year, and I was looking at going into the Air Force and being a fighter pilot and stuff like this. Went for interviews and everything, and they said, yeah, your grades are good. You got to get more, physically fit. And I was like, yeah, no worries. Yeah, that's fine. But then when I moved to Mount Isa, like the two things happened. I discovered guitar.
Yeah.
So before, like in year 9, I started playing guitar, and then I did the last 2 years, year 11 and 12. So I just went completely into the guitar, and my grades dropped. But my parents, like my dad is a like basically at the end of the war. So he was born at the end of the war, and he had a really hard life. Like he was an orphan. His dad would beat him into unconsciousness regularly. He went away and served in Malaya, and had post-traumatic stress disorder from it for years, undiagnosed. And so when I was finishing high school, he said to me, make sure you
love what you're going to do.
No, he said, make sure you get a job.
All right.
Get a job, because if you don't have something to fall back on, you're fucked.
Yeah.
And that...
Well, that's what I got as well.
Yeah, and that advice to me, instead of doing what I really wanted, which was get on a bus and move to Brisbane and go to the conservatorium, I got on my bike, rode to the mines, and became an apprentice. So that was if I had have got some different advice at that time, I would probably be in a much different place.
Yeah.
And I think that's got to do...
hard, isn't it?
But it's got to do with what you were saying. It's the Australian culture. It's like...
Yeah.
No, get a real job. Make sure that when you fail, you get a real job. You have something to fall back on. And I mean, there is wisdom in that. Like there's
they're telling you that out of love. I know.
Absolutely. And I don't begrudge my parents that at all, because my dad had an incredibly hard life, and he was looking out for me, saying, look, man, what you're doing is what you think you're going to do is very unlikely. So make sure you got something to fall back on. And that's really good advice.
But the problem is that it is, except that I suppose it would be nice if eventually we started to consider the arts a legitimate vocation and direction and job. So
well, I mean, I'm not sure what the mood is in Australia, because I've actually been out of Australia for over 5 years now, so I'm not really in touch with what the on the boots thing is. But I know that when I left, it was moving away from that very quickly. Like there was no, the governments just keep chopping more and more out of investment. There's nothing extra coming in. It's always just chipping away at the arts. I don't know if that's changed at all. I can't imagine it would under Scott Morrison, but.
No, it hasn't really. And then obviously with the pandemic, there was definitely a feeling that in particular live performing musicians, but probably even more broader, performers more broadly have been left out of a lot of assistance there. Although in saying that, there are some grants becoming available now, and I think that's probably out of I think they're finally understanding that they need to try to activate that sector because of the flow-on effect that'll have across the board. So it's it's very, very hard to sort of, I don't know, I don't know, did you see the Fortitude Music Hall before you left? That's a new place in the Brisbane Valley. You've got a place there that has the capacity for around about 2,000 people for live concerts, and it's been sitting there empty for 12 months, and there's no festivals, as you know. I mean, you guys are going through it as well, obviously, but it's just hard to know how it's going to fire up again unless somebody assists. And so there are some lovely grants coming now through for people to try to activate that sector.
So that's exciting to me. I think I think some of the finest musicians I've ever played with are from Brisbane. There's there's exceptional musicians there, like especially for the size of the city, and there is some amazing world class musicians that live and work in Brisbane, and it just sometimes it breaks my heart when I think about it. It's just these people that don't get those opportunities, and especially now, as you say, after the pandemic, it's like, this is a perfect opportunity for people just to just to screw you just that little bit more, you artistic types, you wankers, you know.
Yeah.
And especially when they're changing all the university degrees to make it far more expensive to get an arts degree. Like, did you see
Oh,
that?
yeah. I know. Yeah, I did see that, man. Yeah, that's bizarre.
Like
Yeah.
that's just, you know, people scream at like, oh, it's always the lefties and it's always the universities that are, you know, oh, they make everyone gay or something, and it's like, no, you're you're actually shaping culture. Like your policies are shaping culture. You know,
Uh,
like
well, I sit in the middle, Ben. So let's not start one of our discussions. We've had many in the past.
but you know what I mean though. Like that is
Yeah.
there are actual like you can talk about culture war, you can talk about cancel culture and PC culture, but then there's actual policy and changing
Yeah.
the actual real world long term economic uh, positions of young hopeful minds is a way
Mm,
of shaping the democracy of your country for generations to come. And it's an incredibly effective tool. If it's too expensive to get an arts degree, why
mm,
would a parent or a child go into debt for 30 years or 20 years to get an arts degree? Like,
yeah.
you know, when that person might be a beautiful artistic mind that might have all this potential, but that mind will now be shaped into accountancy or science or something they're totally not suited for
Yeah. I
because
agree.
you know
Yeah. It's
that's abominable to me. A university
yeah.
and higher education, A, should be fucking free in my opinion,
Yes,
and
it should be.
B, you should have the time and the space to investigate what you want to do. You and I both know that when you're in your
Mm,
20s, you're not that smart. Like you need to
mm,
explore the world and figure out what you're actually going to do when you're a grown up. And that's the time to do it. And you shouldn't be saddled with a gigantic debt for investigating art and music and literature. And that's, you know,
and
and
history.
history,
Yeah.
you
That's
know,
yeah.
so
I
many,
agree.
so many
Yeah.
minds are being crushed by that into this, you know, get a job and make sure you work in the mines and make sure you know, work in finance. It's like, fuck that. There's enough assholes that are keen to do that as it is, mate. Anyway, let's not go down that rabbit hole. So,
Oh, well, you just did.
uh,
But no, I agree. 100%, man. I agree. And you know what? I wish, like I said before, I was good at chemistry and math and physics and so I just, oh, I'm going to do a Bachelor of Science. But, I wish that I had done an arts degree. And you're right. Unfortunately, at that time, you're not mature enough to make those sort of decisions. And I probably, I'm not saying I wouldn't say I was pressured, but I was encouraged to sort of go down that route. And yeah, it's it's a tricky one. I 100% agree that is probably an unfair thing to target.
especially, I mean, just in a country like Australia, mate, there's so much potential. There's so much like spirit and vibe in the country, you know, like it's a young country. There's so much that Australia could and does innovate, even in spite of all those sort of things, you know, like in spite of all that culture of like repressing the arts and making sure no one's, you know, getting too airy fairy. Like, there's still like some of the best musicians in the world come out of Australia, some of the most innovative scientists, even though, you know,
Yeah.
every year they cut the CSIRO budget by another, you know, 3%. You know, it's mental.
Mm,
But anyway, so when you went to university with the science degree we're talking about,
yes.
you then
Yes.
dropped out to pursue music. Did you immediately hook up with the guys from Miles from Nowhere, or how did that come about?
No. So I actually was in another band called The Distant Few, and we were sort of a bit angsty, pretty rocky. And so at uni, there was a green room that had like a drum kit and Mesa Boogie amp and bass amp, and like you could just sort of hire that out. And so we would find ourselves more often in the green room than actually at lectures where we were meant to be.
Absolutely.
And that's when I made the decision that, yeah, I think I'm going to have a crack at this. So, yeah, no, I did. I was in a band called The Distant Few for a while, and we did a few things around Brisbane. We had a good time, but it I don't know, it just sort of didn't feel like a good fit for me in the end. And then I started busking solo at a little pizza restaurant, and I got one of my mates from school, Dan Carter, to come down and busk with me, and we played 2 guitars. And then his brother Mick came along. He played drums, and then Dan and Mick said, "Oh, our cousin Ben, he plays everything." And Ben McCarthy, he plays everything. So all of a sudden, like, well, not all of a sudden, probably took around about 6 months, but then we had 4 of us, and we were busking at this restaurant. I think in the end they were paying us around about $100, and and a pizza. And we had a situation where people were booking to be near us, and this lovely guy, Steve O'Shea, who owned the restaurant, he said, the place is full and they all want to be out next to you. And we had some fun there, man. Like, there was one particular time I remember, we were doing Foxy Lady, and I was playing the solo on a kazoo. And I had a hubcap, and I set fire to the kazoo, like
Jimi Hendrix, the famous burning stage. That's amazing.
That Isle of Wight, I can't remember which concert that was, but anyway,
something like that,
yeah, set fire to the kazoo, but we just sort of grew that way, and then thought, let's have a crack at this at a pub, and man, we just had a really good time. We had a special magic. The 4 of us, we sang 4-part harmonies in most of our songs, and did a cappella music as well, and it just had that larrikin appeal.
Yeah,
our band, and it's great fun. I'm just be forever grateful that I was involved. It was awesome.
Yeah, I saw you play once. I can't remember, but it wasn't long after I moved to Brisbane, so it would have been late 90s, maybe mid to late 90s.
Yep.
I think it was like at the Travel Lodge, maybe.
The Travel Lodge, the Jazz and Blues Bar.
That's the one.
Lodge, man.
That's the one.
Oh, that was an amazing venue. That was one of my favourite venues, and to be able to play there later on when I formed the band was just a massive thing for me, because I grew up watching these great musicians at that place, and then we ended up getting a residency there, and we were asked to play their closing night there. So yeah, it was. Yeah, there's so many stories like that, as I say, we're just really lucky. The 4 of us got together and we had something magic together. It was awesome.
That's amazing, man. So how did you end up? So you were in that band for a long time.
Yeah, I was a long time. So the original incarnation for maybe 8 years, and then Ben left the band. It is tricky when you've got brothers and cousins in a band.
Oh, yeah.
Sort of, that there was some fiery times, and that it sort of got to that stage at the end that they were clashing a little. And then Ben left, and we had Jeff Reeves join, who's a very good friend of mine still to this day, and fabulous bass player. And then shortly after that, maybe another 18 months, 2 years after that, Michael, our drummer, decided it was time for him. He had 4 children.
Ooh.
So he had already had children when we started playing. So yeah, he had a really good solid run, but it was time for him to spend some time at home. And then we had Michael Grabby join us.
Hey.
Obviously, fantastic guy, and my best mate. And so yeah, he joined, and we went on for another maybe 3 years after that. It was,
that's amazing.
Long time.
So that was like what, probably like 15 years or something? Is that right?
I think so. Yeah.
That's awesome. So when did that form? Was it mid 90s?
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know. It's all a bit fuzzy. When I transitioned from the other band, the Distant Few. But I guess it would have been mid-90s. Oh, no, it would have been earlier than that, sorry, Ben. It would have been probably around about 92, 93, I think.
Yeah, right.
So when we played in Germany, that was Expo 2000 in Hanover. The party never stops.
I'm going to see Kraftwerk at the discotheque.
Fun. No, we we played there in 2000, and so Ben had left the band, and Jeff Reeves had only joined maybe 6 months prior to that,
Right.
and was thrown well and truly into the deep end.
And so how long
And
did you do? Was that one big tour you went to the UK and then
no,
Germany, or was
we
that
were
separate
asked.
trips?
Well, it was two separate trips. We were asked to go over and play at the Australian Pavilion in Hanover,
Yep.
and it was fabulous. It was like the Australian government. They just saw us at a gig in Canberra. We played in Canberra. It was so bizarre. And then they said, "Oh, we want you to go over and play there." And there's some other fantastic artists playing there. John Malcolm was playing there. I
Oh,
met John.
wow.
Yeah, Brisbane genius.
He's amazing.
And
John Malcolm's a wicked guitar player, man. Just a trippy
yeah,
dude. I remember
he
that
is.
the
He
trippy guy
is.
just with his setup. He takes like 4 hours to set up. I've never seen
Same
anything
with me,
like
man.
it. I've never seen anything like it.
It's like the TARDIS, isn't
Oh
it? It's
man, his
amazing.
setup, it just keeps building. It's like an organic thing.
It's just the tower of analog
Yeah,
love.
it's
Yeah,
great.
it's ridiculous.
What a fantastic
Uh,
guitar player though.
He's wicked. Yeah. So we did that and we killed it, man. They loved us. And we sold so many CDs. We had to send like another pallet of CDs over to us in Germany. And then they asked us to come back because we played for like 6 weeks. And then we came back to Brizzy, but then they wanted us to come back for another 6 weeks or a couple of months at the end because it goes for such a long time,
Yeah.
the expo. And we went back. And then we were asked to sing the closing song at the closing ceremony, the theme song written by Klaus Meiner, A
Oh,
Moment of Glory. And I sang that at the closing ceremony because he's got quite a high voice and
wow.
it was like this, terrible. We had this crap band backing us, the Berlin Philharmonic Orchestra.
Oh,
They were,
bloody amateurs.
yeah, bunch of amateurs. Yeah, no, that was amazing. You know, it was,
Wow,
that was
that's trippy, man. I didn't know that. That's awesome.
sang the Moment of Glory. A moment of glory called evolution. It's very operatic.
No wonder there was
Yeah,
it was a hangover when you came back, man. That's that's a big
yeah,
high.
I know, that's right. And then, it was still fun for a bit, because we did a lot of stuff in Byron, which we loved. And there's another beautiful pub down there, at Brunswick Heads that, like adored us. And we would always have this, regular crew, sort of like massive turnout in this beer garden. And
And,
and
tw- and 20,
Yamba,
20 years ago in Byron's a very different city too.
oh man, it was so much fun. We played at the Beach Hotel.
Yep.
Uh,
The
we were paid
railway.
cash. The railway, yeah,
Yep.
the rails. Yeah, or Yamba, the Pacific Hotel in Yamba, and we would go down and play the Basement in Sydney, and I believe the Basement is gone now as well
Yep.
in
That
Sydney, which
closed.
is terrible. Um, and the Espy in Melbourne, we would do that on a Sunday, which was wonderful. But yeah, it's good times.
That's amazing. So, just talk us through the '90s circuit scene because it's something that I experienced a little bit. But living in outback Australia in the early '90s, we used to
Mhm.
get the circuit bands come through. Did Miles ever do any of the circuit?
As in, what do you mean by that? Like,
So there was like a circuit you could do that started sort of down in Sydney, and you basically just go up the
uh,
east coast and go all the way up to sort of Cairns, and then back down again, and then go in.
yeah, we sort of did that.
Yeah,
Yeah, but we did that, and I suppose we had just established these relationships with particular venues, and obviously you had to be careful. You couldn't do it too often because you want people to rock up to your show. You don't want to be there and then there again another 2 months later. So I mean, Australia is good for that because it's bloody big.
yeah. Oh, it's
So
huge. I was going to say
there's a lot of
that circuit's about 3,000 miles.
oh, dude, yeah, the Port Douglas. Like we would go to Port Douglas and play at this wonderful place called the Iron Bar in Port Douglas, and it was a small venue, but it was just it would be crammed. I would stage dive and like all this stuff. It was great fun. And then, yeah, sometimes you would drive all the way back and then do another gig like that crusty feeling of like
Oh,
driving for 18 hours and then getting out of the van and setting up the PA,
oh
and
man.
it's like, oh, you're joking. And those are things that I don't miss, and the smell in the van,
Oh
I
yeah.
don't miss that as well.
Yep. 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 The Sunday the Sunday afternoon trip on the way back from like a weekend away always sounds like a good idea financially, but
Yes.
then you actually get there at like and you start setting up at 3 and you've been driving since 10 and you
Yeah.
start packing in, you just go, why have we done this for an extra
Why we
$200?
still do it? Yeah, I know. I could be asleep.
Yeah, good times though. Makes for good stories.
Yeah, but 3 songs in, man, it's like,
It's fine.
yeah, this is
Yeah,
cooking.
yeah. As long as Gaz is driving, you'll be fine, mate. Have a couple of
Yeah,
road beers, you'll be fine, mate.
yeah.
It's good for
Couple of no,
it's good for the voice.
trucky dust.
Yes, it's good for the voice.
Yeah.
So you had that sort of long and illustrious sort of career, sort of
Mm,
traveling and performing, and you know getting to perform in different countries and stuff like that. And then when the band dissolved, did you
yes.
immediately start doing the agency thing? Because your agency now is probably one of the most successful, well, definitely in Brisbane, but it's got to be one of
Yeah.
the more successful sort of talent agencies in any capital city, hasn't it?
I don't know, but certainly in Brisbane, we're very well respected, that's the most important thing to me. Um, I think it was pretty well straight away, maybe 6 months or so after the band finished, that I started coordinating uh, a venue, Pig and Whistle at Riverside, which is just like a massive pub, and it's been there for forever. Um, and I started coordinating their entertainment, and as I said earlier, it just sort of led to another couple of venues here and there. And I don't, yeah, it's a funny thing. I think why, or one of the reasons why I have managed to be reasonably successful is perhaps because of my experience performing live and being in a band, and it's enabled me to understand both sides of the equation.
Yep.
And obviously, um, I think you've got to represent, you've got to please your client at the end of the day, because they're the ones that are paying the invoice.
Yep.
And there's no doubt that you've got to, at times, probably bend over and take it up the tailpipe for the client. But I just think that not enough agents maybe go into with a straight enough bat on behalf of the artist,
Yes.
and and which is, maybe I shouldn't say that, because they're actually making it a bit easier for me, the fact that they don't do that. But I just think that it's that's the problem, is that you've really got to try to remember to walk that line, um, and get the best possible outcome for both parties, and because that's the sort of, that's what we've got to try to create. That's the atmosphere that we need, is where everybody's happy.
The
So
culture.
yeah, and I just think, unfortunately, there's too many agencies that I know of, that perhaps my competitors, maybe every now and again that gets lost on them, and that they if push comes to shove, it's the artist that's getting screwed.
Yeah.
And that's probably where they're going wrong.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's funny because like I've worked for most of the agencies in Brisbane, and definitely the one thing I've always admired about your work is it's definitely a focus on the culture. It's not just about the green. It's about making sure that if there's a legitimate complaint from the artist, that's
Yep.
listened to. But if there's also a legitimate complaint from the venue, that's also
Yep.
listened to. And I think at the end of the day, the thing that is the crux of the matter is what you said. The reason that you have live music is because it keeps people in longer and they spend more money. And if the people aren't spending money, then the music's not going to survive. And
Yeah.
I think the reason that, well, one of the things I think why you've been so successful is because the artists feel appreciated and the venues feel appreciated. So it's kind of a win-win. And I think most of the other agencies I've worked with, who will go unnamed for ethical reasons, just keep the venue happy. And it's just about making sure they get paid. And you know, everything is about culture. I think the older I get, the more I think it's all about culture and setting up that I personally think you changed the Brisbane music landscape in the fact that people actually got paid a decent amount for a decent amount of time, whereas that wasn't happening before. So, you know, all kudos to you, mate. Well done. Pat on the back.
Well, isn't it funny though that when the musician is happy and that you know, they feel appreciated and they feel like they are getting remunerated appropriately, isn't it funny how much of a better job and they do and a more effort that they put into the gig, and then obviously the venue is stoked and everybody, it just works, you know. So it's, you know, it's not rocket science. It's just like, you know, if everybody's fair, then everybody wins.
Absolutely. Well, it's just basic human psychology, isn't it? If you feel invested in, you want to invest in your product. If you don't, if you feel like you're being taken advantage of, you're not gonna go the extra mile for someone. But if someone is invested in you, you know, respect, time spent, you know, it's always going to make you a better worker, if that's a thing. Because at the end of the day, like a lot of, and I say this a lot over here about the Brisbane music scene, like it's a really, really unusual music scene in the fact that you can make a lot of money as a musician in Brisbane. Like, I think it's one of the only cities in Australia that you can actually make really decent money.
Yeah, it's funny, you know, because I'm booking one venue in Sydney because one of the groups that I work with has a venue in Sydney. It's a beautiful venue. And they asked me to set up a roster down there. So I went down, met some guys, and that has grown organically. And it's great. They're wonderful artists. But they cannot believe what happens in Brisbane.
Yeah.
You know, like some of them want to come up and do working holidays. You know, it's like, oh, come up and we're going to do that. You know, I've got PAs lying around here that if I'm not careful, Nicola will throw in the bin. My wife will throw them in the bin. But
you do
throw anything away, man.
You do have a bit of gas, mate. Gear acquisition syndrome.
Yeah, I do. It's terrible. But they're going to come up. It's just such a vibrant scene. It's amazing, and I think you know, it's certainly I can't take the credit for any of this, but there's a massive solo scene, and that just keeps the wheels moving midweek.
Yep.
You know, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you know, things move to duos and trios and bands and etc. But you know, it's in Brisbane. It's really common for a venue to think to themselves, oh, we might throw a soloist over in the corner there on a Wednesday or a Thursday night.
Yeah.
And you know, it changes the bank balance for a lot of guys and girls.
Oh, absolutely, man. Like it is a game changer. So that being said, can you now sort of walk us through your personal and professional encounter with the horrible little buggery that is the COVID-19? How was that experience for you? Because it was basically a year ago this week that it all shut down here. I don't know what it was like in Australia.
Yeah, it was. It was like about, I think, the 23rd of March, I'm pretty sure. And yeah, it was a flat line, man. It was just complete flat line. And unfortunately, there was a couple of venues that didn't pay.
Oh, no.
And sort of, email addresses just all of a sudden not answered. But I was able to pay all the guys and girls, which is cool. And in fact, one of those venues that hadn't paid has now started paying me $100 a month, which is almost more of a pain in the ass than it is.
That's got to
to
suck.
apply to the
I
invoice.
was going to say it's going to suck for your tax as well.
Yeah. But no, look, it was devastating, man, and it's funny because um, it shouldn't define who I am, but you start to you sort of wrap up yourself in your job in a way. Even though I've got so many other wonderful things in my life, my wife and 4 kids, and incidentally, I've got a grandchild on the way. Ben, I don't know.
Oh, congratulations.
Maybe, yeah, thanks, man.
That's
So,
amazing.
yeah, so I don't know why, but I was pretty down.
Yep.
And I was, um, yeah, but my wife, she's a GP, and so she was able to obviously, to whatever degree she wanted to, up the ante as far as how much she was working. She could have worked 7 days a week if she wanted. So she did a lot of work because we were sort of, it's one of those things when you're in business and you've got your own business and cash flow, uh, you're collecting GST and you sort of, sometimes you spend money that you don't have,
Yep.
because it'll sort of it'll
Balance
roll
out.
through.
Yep.
And unfortunately, we just had a little situation where I had taken on a couple of extra clients that wanted a PA, to be in-house. And I don't know if over in the UK you guys are doing these stick systems, but the EV Evolve systems have become a quite little popular
Yeah.
item for these venues because they really look slick.
Yeah.
And
They sound great.
they sound great. They've got that lovely dispersion. And I end up buying a couple of those to put in a couple of different venues.
And they're not cheap.
No. And then literally like 3 weeks after that, it just flatlined, and it's like, okay, so I've got $5,000 in the hole there, and the people are calling me saying you better just come and pick this up because we don't know when we're starting again, if we start again. So, it was one of those things, and so I just wasn't able to draw a wage for ages. And then, the situation when it started to fire up, we had some issues down in Victoria, which were terrible.
Yep.
And that sort of filtered across the whole country because everybody realized how easily these situations could occur. And then we had another little hiccup in Brisbane where some people returned from travel down south, and they fibbed on their forms when they came back to Brisbane, and they tested positive, and so there was another lockdown, and then there was another lockdown after that around just January this year, and we were at Stradbroke Island, and we were locked down in our unit at Stradbroke Island. That was great.
No.
For our holidays.
Oh, that
lockdown
sucks.
on holidays.
That sucks.
But it's that whole sort of the sector is not confident to really book anything. St. Patrick's Day is going to be an absolute fizzer this year, and it usually is a really big thing for the business. New Year's Eve was a shadow of its former self.
Yeah.
So, man, it's like we're getting up there now to 50% probably of where we were. So, I don't know, maybe the vaccination rollout will help us as well.
Because I saw that's starting soon, is it? Or
it started now, yeah.
Okay.
So frontline health workers and elderly people are starting to receive that, and they're apparently going to be producing the vaccine here in Australia, and it'll start, I think, in maybe a week's time, and they'll be producing 1 million of those a week. So hopefully it won't be too long.
That's great. Well, I mean, I'm about as anti-Tory as you can imagine I would be, being the freaking lefty hippie that I am. But the one thing I will give them is they've gone hard on the vaccine, man. They've vaccinated like nearly 20 million people in the UK already.
Yeah.
And like I know quite a few people that have had the vaccine already.
Yep.
And it is, and I know for us here in the UK, it has kind of changed the layout of what's happening.
Yep.
So I know that like the week before last, it was like everything was cancer, everything was shit. And then basically our glorious leader, Boris Johnson, came out and said, we're going to start opening up, and this is the roadmap, and, you know, just everybody, just do the right thing, will you? Just, you know, toodle pip, bumbling idiot that he is. But it
He'd
has...
be great in a Blondie tribute band,
Oh,
though, I
man,
reckon. Don't you think?
what a colossal twat. Like, honestly. The worst person at the worst
Don't
possible
start
time.
again.
He's the worst. He's the worst. He's the worst.
I can think of somebody that was worse, but he's gone now, so I
Well,
suppose...
I mean, it's the same. It's the same thing, man. Like, these right-wing, you know, cult of personality leaders, they are the worst possible things. You need to band the country together when those things happen, not have some guy going, only I can save you. It's like, no, you won't. You're an idiot. You're an idiot.
Yeah.
But anyway, but in saying that as well...
Run a comb through your hair first, at
No,
least.
but that's a tactic. He does that on purpose. He musses the hair before he goes out, so that he looks more like, oh, good old Boris. Oh, isn't he such a lovable larrikin? It's like, no, he's a fucking maniacal asshole.
I love you, baby.
He's an absolute asshole. Anyway, but I will give the Tories their credit. They have actually been paying. Like, I have received money, not a huge amount of money, but I have received money from the government in lump sums 3 times, and we're due for some more next month.
And so did I. You know, we had an excellent program called JobKeeper, and obviously myself as an employee of my own company, I was able to apply for that and received it, and it was excellent. You know, and it's helped a lot of people. Unfortunately, you know, it's going to finish up at the end of this month, and it will be interesting to see how that flows on and into everybody's behaviour. But I understand also, by the same token, that it's not a endless supply of money, and I would probably say, you know, as I said earlier on, I'm pretty apolitical, but the government here has also done a pretty good job in that regard.
I mean, I was actually really, really impressed, to be honest. Like, you know my leanings. I think, you know, Scott Morrison's an absolute monkey. But the government locked down. They locked down hard. They made it really difficult for people to get in and out, aside from a certain, you know, few things that happened in New South Wales and stuff. But, like, the government here has only just brought in a travel ban. Like, brought in a lockdown.
Man.
Like,
I was talking to some people from the UK about this just the other day, and I found that really hard to believe. I couldn't understand
it's incomprehensible. Like, you look at places like Australia, you look at places like the New Zealand. I'm the first to rag on the Australian government because I'm anti-conservative. I'm, you know, proud in saying that, but they did the right thing. They did the right thing. They locked down hard, and they contained the disease, and you know, you're back to 50%, right?
Yeah.
I'm still effectively unemployed a year later.
Yeah, right.
So there's a categoric difference in that, and it's an once again, it's an application of policy. You know, the British government did the wrong thing, and they've repeatedly done the wrong thing because they're a bunch of trust fund babies who couldn't organise a way out of a paper bag if they tried. It's incredible, and you know. Anyway,
it's been very hard to believe that they were still, you know, allowing people to arrive
with no quarantine.
By the hundreds,
by the thousands.
Yeah.
I remember, and you know, people that have heard this podcast probably sick of this story, but I went to Iceland, basically like a year, like the Wednesday of last week, a year ago, for like 3 days with Margie, my wife, for like our 20th anniversary. Unbelievable trip, so good.
Yeah,
spent way too much money. Went to dropped like 400 pounds at like this restaurant one night just because, you know, it was our 20th anniversary. Like I'm usually a bit of a stingy bastard, but you know, it was a special thing. And
what'd you eat? Yabbies. Yabbies on toast.
Yabbies on toast, mate. It was a 7 part degustation menu with matched wine.
Oh, Matching wines, of course.
And I actually cocked it up because we didn't realize, because we're doing the conversion in our head, but it's like £1 is to like 12 Icelandic krona or something.
I love
So,
those times.
oh man, so
Yeah, and by the fourth wine, you can't do the math anyway. So it's like,
but I was like saying,
oh, whatever.
I was like saying, okay, so this figure here must be the meal, and then this figure here, which is slightly larger, must be the meal with the wine pairing. Cool. So we'll get like little bits of wine. Little did I know that it was that A plus B, not A or B.
Oh,
So it was like, oh man, but it was ridiculous. Anyway,
Yeah.
it was so good. It was like, a once in 20-year treat. It was, awesome. But the first time I ever saw an elbow bump, like was in Iceland, and it was the Icelandic people doing it. And I'm like, oh, okay, something's going on that I don't know, because we'd left like 3 days before. We flew back into Luton, and it was already kicking off hard in Italy and Spain. Like there was already like serious lockdowns, and Luton was probably like 4,000 or 5,000 people in the entry lobby, and there was nothing in place. There was no warnings. There was nothing. And I thought, you know what? If someone here's got this thing, we've all got this thing. And I got sick, man. I got sick.
Yep.
I got sick on the Sunday after. So we came back on the Friday. I played a gig on Saturday, and at the end of the gig, I'm going, man, I feel a bit rough, But I was like, I've just been on a holiday, drinking too much, eating too much. I thought, I've just pushed it a bit hard. Wake up on Sunday morning, and I'm like, oh, I'm really sick. And so then, like, I was like, okay, this is bad. And then I ended up passed out on the bathroom floor on Tuesday, like unconscious.
Man.
It was bad.
Did you have COVID testing in place at that stage?
Nothing, man. Nothing. Nothing. I called them and I said, look, because I called I called the ambulance. The ambulance came because I was like couldn't breathe, coughing, running a temperature like through the roof, like semi-delirious, like.
Yep.
And I said, I think I've got this thing. Like, I think I've got this thing. And they said, where have you been anywhere? I said, yeah, I've just come back from Iceland. No, you haven't got it. I'm like, okay, but I've just come back through an airport. Like,
yeah,
but it's only if you've been to Italy or Spain or Portugal. I'm like, okay.
Oh God, it's so stupid.
But it's like, okay, that I get that. But like, to me, I'm showing all the signs of this disease. Like, I'm constantly coughing. I'm having a hard time breathing. Like, I'm running a really high fever. No. I said, well, shouldn't you test me? We don't test you. And this was the following week. This was just before they locked everything down. So I got on the phone to the venue as that said, look, I think I've got this thing. You might want to, let people know. And the venue was like, yeah, we'll do whatever we can, but the government's not telling us what to do. Like, the government said nothing. And
right.
And I called the venues for that weekend and said, look, I was in bed for like a week, man. I was flat on my back for a week. But
isn't it quite likely that there's people coming in from Italy and at the same airport?
Yep. It's super dumb. It's just dumb. And I got tested. I got tested ages later, and I didn't have it. But you can have it and then lose the antibody. So
yeah,
I'm fairly certain that I had it. And it took me about a month to get over it. And I actually went and did an online gig about 3.5 weeks after, or about a month after, and I couldn't sing. Like, my lungs were gone. And it took me about probably 2 months to physically feel normal again.
Oh, man.
Yeah, it's pretty shit. But, and so they didn't lock the borders, and that happens, man. So, I'm just really happy that Australia's done so well, personally.
Yeah, we've been very lucky. I mean, the government's got all sorts of other problems happening at the moment. No doubt you would have seen that. But
oh yeah, they're battling China. Is that right? Battling China and stuff like that.
Oh, they're taking on China, and there's some pretty ordinary accusations going on in regards to
sexual assaults.
Yeah, sexual assaults. So
yep. Oh,
that's
weird. It's always weird that people that preach family values are always the ones that are doing the dodgy shit. It's almost like they only just use it as a tool. It's bizarre. Anyway, on that note,
so cynical, Benny.
On that note, mate, can we? We've been chatting for a while, so we'll finish with the speed round to get it back to music and off politics.
Sure. Yes.
Okay, so Who's your favorite artist right now?
Oh, oh, that's really hard. Is this meant to be a speed round? I'm going to say it straight away.
No, just top of mind. Like
John Schofield. John Schofield.
Schofield, nice, excellent, well
Yeah,
done. That's a good choice. I'm a big fan. What
yeah, he's awesome.
what do you like about him?
Uh, I like the phrasing that he uses. I think that it's unexpected at times, and but still makes sense. And I feel like he's got a. It's like he's almost um, cartoony the way he his choice of notes. I like it. It makes me sort of smile. You know, it's like almost frivolous in a way. He's
Yeah,
having some fun. You know.
excellent.
So I think he's just got a really cool personality with what he plays. I don't think he takes everything super serious, you know?
And for a jazzer, that's very important.
Yeah.
What's your favorite song right now?
Nashville Cats by the Lovin' Spoonful, because I heard it on the radio the other day on the Spotify, because I was just torturing Connor on the way to camping with the first album that I bought, which was Goofy Greats. And it has all those stupid American, songs like, yummy, 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 I got love in
Oh my
my
God,
tummy, that sort of stupid stuff,
that's awesome.
And Nashville Cats came on. I was like, oh man, this is a good song.
Yeah, right on. I don't know that song.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's have a listen to it. It's got different phrasing, like they sing the phrase sort of past the end of the bar, and it just sort of, I don't know. It have a listen to that. It's good.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so what was the last song you listened to?
It's actually Harvest Moon
Neil
uh,
Young.
by Neil Young, because I'm singing it at Ben Finlay's wedding on Sunday.
All
He's
right,
asked me to
Ben's getting
sing.
married.
Yeah, Ben's getting married. So, and I'm emceeing the wedding, and he wants me
Oh,
to sing that song. So I listened to that. I've been listening to that a fair bit just so that it's in my head.
make sure you say good day to him for me.
I will. Yeah,
That's going to be a loose affair.
I would say so.
If I know Ben. Oh my God. So on that note, what was the last album you listened to from start to finish?
I think it probably would have been Kind of Blue by Miles Davis.
Excellent.
I listened to that the other day and just put the whole thing on Spotify.
Yep.
Because I more often would just play one song, like I'll say, hey Google, play such and such, and then how it sort of creates a
A
playlist from
radio,
that
yep.
song.
Yep.
Yeah, that's more often what I would do. But I did put the album Kind of Blue on the other day.
That's an excellent choice, man.
Oh, I love it.
What song do you wish you had written?
I wish I had written a couple of songs. Homeward Bound by Paul Simon really resonates with me. I just think that's how I felt at the end of my band days.
Yeah.
And well, even during my band days at times. But the other song that I wish I had written, there's probably half a dozen Neil Finn songs that I wish I'd written.
Yep.
There's a Dave Matthews song that I wish I'd written. Bartender, it's called. And
Yes.
I just love that song.
Absolutely beautiful piece of music.
Yeah, I love it.
Okay, and who's your favourite guilty pleasure artist?
Like, do I have to name somebody that's probably cheesy sort
Yeah.
of thing? And then, yeah. There's a whole lot of that stuff, that sort of British stuff that's, that I like Nick Kershaw, but it's probably, or who else? I mean, I'm not really into Taylor Swift or anything like that, even though the kids play that. Can't get that. Little Mix. The kids have played me Little Mix before when we're on the way to school or whatever, and Yeah, I think they're pretty cool. There you go. That's a guilty pleasure.
Some of the production on that's quite good actually.
Yeah,
And you can see they've spent a bit of money to arrange the tunes well.
yeah. It's great. I mean, there's not. Unfortunately, I would have to say that there's not too many songs that are released, like contemporary songs that I really like.
Yeah,
I mainly listen to older music,
yeah,
and for the most part, I probably listen to instrumental music mostly, so either jazz or classical.
awesome.
But yeah, I don't really listen to music with lyrics often.
Okay. And what other skill do you wish you had, like outside of music? If I could wave a magic wand and give you any other skill, what would you like to be able to do?
Well, I actually consider myself to be already a reasonable cook, but I would have like I could have seen myself like yeah being a chef or just devoting my life to that because I love that search for the combination of flavors. I think that and like imagining what will go together and then when you're right, you
Yep,
know, when it works, it's like a really triumphant moment.
the perfect
Yeah, and
formula.
yeah, it's like, oh, you know, you've got some, I don't know, fish, and you're thinking, oh, I don't know, like just when you look in your fridge and you're like, what am I going to do? And then you try something. I tried something tonight, like I did like a roast vegetable thing. We had some eye fillet that was, you know, finished in the oven, and you know, I really like that feeling when my wife sits down and said, "This is beautiful," you know, she says, "This is lovely," you know, and that makes me feel really good.
Awesome,
So,
man.
and I think maybe that's part of the performance aspect that I've always loved. You know, it's nice to be to feel that reward.
Yep, that
Um,
feedback.
yeah, yeah. And so, but I love to cook. I find cooking quite meditative. You know, like I listen to bossa nova when I cook. A lot of
Really?
bossa music. I love listening to music and you know, chopping some onions and garlic.
I can imagine you shirt off, mate, with an apron on, doing the bossa shuffle around the kitchen with
Oh.
a glass of red wine in your hand.
Well, Ben, I can't blame you for imagining that, mate. You know, I am a very attractive man.
You're an Adonis, mate. Okay, so
Uh,
it's been great to chat to you, man. It's been great to catch up. It's been a while. So where can people
yes.
find out more about you? Is it mostly Rooster Entertainment?
Yeah, man, at the website there, you can find out a bit about me there and drop me a line to say good day if you're in Brisbane or Sydney and you're a musician and you're keen for some gigs because I always love to see new guys and girls and so do the venues. And, you know, as you say earlier, we've got a really healthy scene here and so many lovely young guys and girls coming through. I'm actually currently conducting a sort of singer-songwriter competition at the Soundgarden, a new venue in the Valley. And
Cool.
I'm doing that for the guys in there. And it's just a love job, not getting paid for it, but at least I'm seeing lots of new talent. And last week's heat was ridiculous. It was everybody was so amazing. So yeah, that's been going. Having a really good time doing that. We did a band competition in September, and it's been nice to be involved with the original side of things, Ben, for a bit. You know, because I've missed that a little.
Absolutely.
Um, yeah, although you did hear my "Don't Shoot the Hurricane" EP about 18 months ago that we released,
I
Jason Millhouse, and
I
yeah,
did, and it was very good.
yeah, we're doing another 5 songs at the moment, actually.
Was that
You
the
know,
one that was tied in for the fundraiser for the chap with the?
so no, that was a different little thing. That was John Hanley is gentleman who's terminally ill with motor neuron disease,
I
and
thought it
we've
was that.
written 3 songs together,
Yeah,
and we're currently doing a fourth one as well. And we've done a couple of live performances with John, and that's been really rewarding as well to be involved with him and enabling him to put down some tracks that his family is going to cherish forever. That's been
absolutely
awesome.
awesome, man. And so people can find that single and the one you released on Spotify.
Yes. So there's the. So I think if you just type in John Hanley or MND and me, um, is the charity that's John's been raising money for, MND and me. And you'll find those on Spotify. You'll also see them on YouTube and a couple of clips of John chatting about himself and they're really good. He's just such a champion fellow and such a brave man. And it's quite an incredible story because his voice is quite raspy to speak. But funnily enough, when he opens his false vocal folds, he can find a singing voice. And so it's
Amazing.
been really amazing to do that with him. And then, our originals is called Don't Shoot the Hurricane, Gibbo, Millhouse, and myself. But we're going to do another one soon. It's been really fun. And Jason's a hell of a guitarist.
He's great,
Um,
man. I mean,
yeah,
I've done a bunch of albums with Jason. He's one of Brisbane's best kept secrets. I think he's amazing. He's an amazing
yeah.
musician, amazing producer, amazing engineer.
The studio's a little bit awesome too.
Ah,
Yeah.
yeah. The last EP I did was there, and it was organic audio. Is it still organic audio?
No, it's Record Works.
Record Works.
Yeah, Record Works. Yeah.
Definitely.
So and in saying that, I want to shout out to Gibbo as well because the dude just writes these amazing songs and he just writes so many of them. It's so I just sort of he has me in to come in at the end and sort of contribute a little, but he comes in with these songs that are like 95% finished.
Martin Gibbons. He's a he plays his cards close to his chest, doesn't he? He doesn't go on about stuff, but he always gets it done.
Yeah, and we write those, and some of those songs we wrote in a really different way. He would come and play some chords, and he would just get me to scat in a mic and just start singing all this stuff, like just different melody lines that I could hear. And it really worked well for him because then he went away and he wrote these songs and probably wrote them differently than he would have usually written them because they weren't the lines that he was necessarily thinking in his head. So it worked very well. We're just doing that again now.
That's awesome, man. I look forward to hearing it.
Thank you, Ben.
All right, mate. Well, it's been a pleasure. So go and everybody's listening, go and check out Rooster Entertainment and Record Works and Martin Gibbons and the Motor Neuron charity. And hopefully I'll see you on a stage soon, mate. We're probably thinking about heading back to Australia next year. So we'll definitely
well, awesome. Having dinner. Sure.
Swing by for a visit, and I expect to see you topless with an apron, dancing to bossa nova.
Topless and bottomless, listening to Stan Getz, and you're going to get a 7-course Digo with matching wines.
I'll hold you to that, mate.
I love you, Ben Eden.
I love you, mate. See ya.
See you, mate. Bye.
All right, I've stopped recording, mate. So that was great.
Yeah, it was awesome. Thanks very much.
You happy with the way that went?
Yeah. I mean, I was nervous at